Isabella Martinez thought she was doing the right thing by helping a dying man, but a millionaire's unexpected gift forces her to confront the heartbreaking cost of her choices and the cracks in her marriage. Before we dive into the story, let's do what Sleepless in Seattle taught us. Share where you're listening from. Comment below. The fluorescent lights flicker overhead as Isabella Martinez straightens the stack of case files on her desk. Her office, cramped but meticulously organized, smells of coffee and old paper. Family photos line the windowsill, snapshots of happier times when budgets weren't so tight and hope didn't feel like such a scarce resource. A knock at the door draws her attention. Maria Suarez stands in the doorway, clutching her purse with white-knuckled fingers. Dark circles ring her eyes, and her clothes hang loose on her frame, as if she's been slowly disappearing along with her savings. "Come in, Maria." Isabella gestures to the worn chair across from her desk. "How are the kids?" Maria's shoulders slump as she sinks into the seat. "They're asking why we can't go back to our old apartment. I don't know what to tell them anymore." Isabella's chest tightens. She's seen this look too many times lately, the hollow resignation of someone watching their life unravel thread by thread. She pulls up Maria's file on her computer, though she knows every detail by heart. Single mother, 2 children under 10, laid off from her accounting job 3 months ago. The story feels familiar, almost routine, except that there's nothing routine about watching families fall apart. "I've been making some calls," Isabella says, keeping her voice steady and professional despite the ache in her heart. "The food pantry on 4th Street has openings in their assistance program. They can help with groceries while you're looking for work." She slides a business card across the desk. "Ask for Carmen. She's expecting you." Maria's eyes well with tears. "I never thought I'd need," her voice breaks. "Hey." Isabella rounds the desk, crouching beside Maria's chair. "This is temporary. You're doing everything right, okay? Taking care of your kids, asking for help when you need it. That takes courage." Maria nods, wiping her eyes with trembling fingers. Isabella hands her a tissue from the box she keeps within easy reach. These days, it needs refilling more often than not. "What about the job leads we discussed last week?" Isabella asks, returning to her chair. Her computer screen shows 5 new emails, all marked urgent, but they can wait. Right now, Maria needs her full attention. "I had 2 interviews." Maria's voice steadies slightly. "The pay isn't great, but if I could just get started somewhere." Isabella nods, making notes in the file. "And the childcare voucher application?" "Still pending. They said it could take another week." The fluorescent light flickers again, casting strange shadows across Maria's face. Isabella fights the urge to apologize for things beyond her control. Budget cuts, bureaucratic delays, a system that seems designed to exhaust hope rather than nurture it. Instead, she focuses on what she can do. Let's go through the checklist again. Make sure we haven't missed any resources. She pulls out a fresh form, though her printer warns that it's running low on ink. Another expense she'll have to justify to the budget committee. By the time Maria leaves, clutching a folder of resources and wiping fresh tears, Isabella's next appointment is already waiting. She glances at her phone, 3 missed calls from Mateo and a text asking about dinner. She'll have to answer later. Right now, there are too many people counting on her to stop and think about her own life. The rest of the afternoon blurs into a parade of desperate faces and impossible choices. Isabella's notepad fills with names, numbers, promises she's not sure she can keep. Each story weighs on her like stones in her pockets, dragging her deeper into the overwhelming need that surrounds her. At 5:30, when she should be heading home, Isabella finds herself staring at a new case file. The photo shows an elderly man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Mr. Garcia, recently diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. No insurance, limited savings. The medical bills alone would bankrupt most families. Her phone buzzes again. Mateo's face appears on the screen, his smile frozen in happier times. Isabella lets it go to voicemail, knowing she should answer, but unable to shift her focus from Mr. Garcia's file. How many more stories like this will land on her desk? How many more impossible choices? The drive home feels longer than usual, each traffic light an opportunity to replay the day's conversations in her head. Maria's tears, the pending childcare voucher, Mr. Garcia's medical bills. By the time she pulls into her driveway, the sun has set, casting long shadows across their modest suburban home. Warm light spills from the kitchen window, and the smell of garlic and onions greets her as she opens the door. Mateo stands at the stove, stirring something that smells like his mother's enchilada recipe. He doesn't turn when she enters, his shoulders tense beneath his white dress shirt. "You're late," he says, his voice carefully neutral. "Again." Isabella sets her bag on the counter, heavy with files she shouldn't have brought home but couldn't bear to leave behind. "I'm sorry. There was a new case and I lost track of time?" Mateo turns now, his dark eyes tired. "Isabella, we talked about this. You can't save everyone." "I'm not trying to save everyone." The words come out sharper than intended. She softens her tone. "I just need to do what I can." Mateo sighs, returning to his cooking. "And what about us? What about our plans?" Isabella moves to the cabinet, pulling out plates and glasses. The routine feels both comforting and suffocating. "What plans?" "The car, for one. Mine's barely hanging on, and we agreed to start saving for a down payment." He plates the enchiladas with precise movements, but every month something comes up, some emergency that needs our money more than we do. "They're not emergencies, Mateo. They're people." Isabella sets the table, her movements quick and frustrated. "Real people with real problems. And we're not?" Mateo carries the plates to the table. "We work hard, Isabella. We deserve some security." The word hits her like a slap. Security. Such a simple concept, yet so far out of reach for most of her clients. She sits staring at the perfectly plated food. "You don't understand. Then help me understand." Mateo's voice softens. "Help me see why strangers' needs always come before ours." Isabella picks up her fork, pushing the food around her plate. How can she explain the weight of responsibility she carries? The knowledge that her decisions, her resources, could mean the difference between hope and despair for someone? "The budget cuts at work," she begins, watching Mateo's expression carefully. "They're affecting everyone. Families who were barely hanging on are falling through the cracks. Today, I had a mother of two who can't afford groceries. Last week, it was an elderly couple choosing between medicine and heat." Mateo takes a bite of his enchilada, chewing thoughtfully. "And you feel responsible for all of them?" "Someone has to be." "No, mi amor." He reaches across the table, touching her hand. "Someone has to help, yes, but it doesn't always have to be you, not at the expense of everything else." Isabella pulls her hand away, standing abruptly. "I need to review some files before tomorrow." "Isabella, just eat without me. I'll heat mine up later." She grabs her bag from the counter and retreats to their small home office. Mr. Garcia's file sits on top of the stack, his kind eyes seeming to watch her as she slumps into the chair. The medical bills spread across her desk like a paper mountain of impossibility. Her phone buzzes again. A text from Mateo. "I love you, but we need to talk about this." Isabella closes her eyes, letting the weight of everything settle around her. In the kitchen, she can hear Mateo cleaning up, his movements sharp with frustration. The distance between them feels wider than the few steps separating their rooms, a gulf filled with different priorities and impossible choices. Tomorrow will bring more cases, more needs, more impossible decisions. But for now, Isabella sits in the growing darkness, surrounded by paper reminders of lives hanging in the balance, wondering how long she can keep carrying everyone else's burdens before something breaks. The morning light filters through dusty blinds as Isabella arrives at the office early, hoping to get ahead of the day's caseload. Her coffee grows cold on her desk as she reviews files, making notes and phone calls, trying to stretch limited resources across unlimited need. The young couple sitting across from her now, James and Sarah Mitchell, clutch each other's hands like lifelines. Their eviction notice lies on the desk between them, the words "Final Warning" stamped in angry red letters. "We've tried everything," Sarah says, her voice trembling. "Extra shifts, selling furniture, but with the medical bills from the baby..." Isabella nods, remembering their file. Premature birth, weeks in the NICU, insurance covered barely half the costs. Another family drowning in circumstances beyond their control. "Let me see what I can do." Isabella reaches for her phone, dialing a number she knows by heart. The landlord's voicemail greets her, cold and professional. She leaves what feels like her 100th message this week, knowing it will likely go unanswered. As she talks, her eyes drift to the photo on her desk, her and Matteo on their wedding day, both smiling with the certainty of youth. His words from last night echo in her mind. We deserve some security. The irony tastes bitter in her mouth. I'll keep trying, she tells the Mitchells, though the words feel hollow. In the meantime, here's information about emergency housing assistance. She hands them a brochure, watching their faces fall as they realize it's just another form, another waiting list, another maybe. After they leave, Isabella sits in the quiet of her office, listening to the hum of fluorescent lights and distant voices. Her computer chimes with new emails, more cases, more crises, more people needing more than she can give. Her phone buzzes. Matteo's message is brief. Dinner at home tonight? We need to talk. Isabella starts to reply, but movement at her door interrupts her. Mr. Garcia stands there, leaning heavily on a cane, his face gray with exhaustion. Her heart sinks as she notices how much weight he's lost since his last visit. Mr. Garcia, please, sit down. She hurries to help him to a chair, noting how his hands shake as he lowers himself. You should have called. I would have come to you. He waves off her concern with a weak smile. The hospital called this morning. They want to start treatment next week, but... He pulls out a stack of papers from his worn leather bag. The costs. Isabella takes the papers, though she already knows what they'll say. Numbers that might as well be written in blood for all the life they drain from people. She thinks of her and Matteo's savings account, of the careful budget they've maintained, of all their plans for the future. Let me make some calls, she says, reaching for her phone. But Mr. Garcia's hand stops her, gentle but insistent. I've made all the calls, Miss Martinez. There are no more numbers to dial, no more forms to fill out. His eyes, still kind despite everything, meet hers. I just wanted to thank you for trying. The words hit her like physical blows. She watches him struggle to his feet, refusing her help with dignified determination. At the door, he turns back. You're a good person, Miss Martinez. Don't let this world change that. After he leaves, Isabella sits in the growing shadows of her office, staring at the medical bills he left behind. The numbers blur before her eyes, but one thought remains crystal clear. She has the power to help. Not through forms or phone calls or professional distance, but through a simple, devastating choice. The drive home feels like moving through water, every motion slow and weighted. She finds Matteo in the kitchen again, this time sitting at the table with their monthly budget spread before him. The sight stops her in the doorway, all their careful planning, their dreams of security, laid out in neat columns and rows. We need to talk, he says, not looking up, about our future. Isabella sets her bag down, the weight of Mr. Garcia's medical bills seeming to pull it to the floor. Yes, she says quietly, we do. Matteo finally meets her eyes, and she sees the worry there, the fear that's been growing between them. I've been looking at our numbers. If we're careful, really careful, we could have enough for a down payment by spring. A real house, Isabella, something of our own. The words cut deeper than he could know. Isabella moves to the table, pulling out a chair but not sitting. Matteo, I need to tell you something. He must hear it in her voice, the decision already made, the future already altered. His hands flatten against the budget papers, as if he could hold their plans in place through sheer force of will. What did you do? The question hangs between them, heavy with accusation and fear. Isabella takes a deep breath, steadying herself for what comes next. There's a man, one of my clients, Mr. Garcia. He has cancer and without treatment. No. Matteo stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Don't tell me you. He'll die, Matteo. Without help, he'll die. And that's our responsibility? Our savings have to go to a stranger because the system failed him? Matteo's voice rises with each word. What about our lives, Isabella? What about everything we've worked for? I haven't done anything yet, she says, though they both know it's only a matter of time. But I can't just watch him die when we have the means to help. The means to help? Matteo laughs, but there's no humor in it. Those means are our future, our security, our chance at having a family of our own someday. He runs a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. Why do strangers always matter more to you than we do? The accusation strikes true, drawing blood. That's not fair, isn't it? Every extra dollar, every spare moment, it all goes to your cases, your causes. When was the last time you put us first? Isabella moves toward him, reaching out, but he steps back. Matteo, Please, try to understand. I understand perfectly. His voice turns cold, controlled. You've already decided, haven't you, Husraf? You're going to give him our savings, and nothing I say will change your mind. She doesn't deny it, can't deny it. The truth sits between them like a wall, growing higher with each passing moment. Then, you've made your choice. Matteo gathers the budget papers with sharp movements, just like always. He leaves her standing in the kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of their shared dreams. Outside, the sun sets on another day, casting long shadows across their modest home. Isabella touches the wedding ring on her finger, feeling the weight of it, the promises it represents, the future it was meant to secure. Tomorrow, she'll go to the bank. She'll withdraw their savings, the money they've carefully collected over years of shared sacrifice. She'll help Mr. Garcia get the treatment he needs. And something between her and Matteo will break, perhaps irreparably. But for now, she stands in their darkening kitchen, listening to Matteo's footsteps overhead, wondering if doing the right thing always feels this much like betrayal. The alarm blares at 6 a.m., jolting Isabella from a restless sleep. Her hand finds empty space where Matteo should be, the sheets cold and untouched. He must have spent the night in the guest room again. The morning light filters through half-drawn blinds, casting thin shadows across their bedroom floor. Isabella's stomach churns as she remembers last night's conversation. Matteo's face contorted with anger, his words sharp as knives. You've ruined everything we've worked for. She'd tried to explain about Mr. Garcia, about the impossible choice between their savings and a man's life, but Matteo wouldn't, or couldn't, understand. Her phone buzzes on the nightstand. It's a text from the hospital confirming Mr. Garcia's first treatment appointment. Isabella's fingers hover over the screen, torn between relief and guilt. She dials the hospital's number, needing to hear that something good has come from this chaos. Good morning, oncology department. A nurse answers, her voice warm and professional. This is Isabella Martinez. I'm calling about Manuel Garcia's condition. Oh yes, Mrs. Martinez. Mr. Garcia is doing well. He's responding positively to the initial medication. He's been talking about you, actually. Says you're his guardian angel. The words lodge in Isabella's throat. Guardian angel. If only Matteo could see it that way. Thank you, she manages. Please let me know if anything changes. After hanging up, Isabella stands before the mirror, straightening her blouse with trembling fingers. Dark circles shadow her eyes, and her shoulders slump with invisible weight. The woman staring back at her looks stretched thin, like a rubber band about to snap. The house creaks with early morning silence as she makes her way downstairs. Coffee mugs sit unwashed in the sink, evidence of Matteo's hasty departure. He must have left for work early, avoiding another confrontation. Isabella touches one of the mugs, still faintly warm. Her chest tightens at this small sign of his presence, this glimpse of their normal routine now fractured beyond recognition. She's halfway through making her own coffee when Matteo's keys jingle at the front door. He must have forgotten something. Isabella's heart races as his footsteps approach the kitchen, but she doesn't turn around. She can't bear to see the disappointment in his eyes again. I need my laptop charger, he says, voice flat and distant. Isabella nods, still facing the coffee maker. I think I saw it in the living room. His footsteps retreat, then return. She feels him pause in the doorway, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. For a moment, she thinks he might say something, might try to bridge this terrible gap. But then the front door closes, and she's alone again with the gurgling coffee maker and the morning silence. At work, Isabella tries to lose herself in the familiar rhythm of case files and client meetings. But her phone sits heavy in her pocket, silent despite her lunchtime message to Matteo. Can we talk tonight? I hate this distance between us. The lack of response speaks volumes. Her office feels smaller today, the walls pressing in with each passing hour. Even the family photos on her desk seem to mock her, smiling faces frozen in happier times when the future stretched bright and certain before them. A photo of their wedding day catches her eye. Matteo spinning her across the dance floor, both of them laughing. She turns it face down. The phone rings, startling her from her thoughts. It's Mr. Garcia. Miss Martinez, his voice trembles slightly. I wanted to thank you again. The doctors say the treatment is working better than expected. That's wonderful news, Mr. Garcia. Her voice catches on the words. Are you all right? You sound troubled. Isabella swallows hard. Just a busy day. Please focus on your recovery. After hanging up, she presses her palms against her eyes, fighting back tears. One life saved, another relationship crumbling. The math doesn't add up, yet she'd make the same choice again. This certainty terrifies her almost as much as Mateo's anger. The rest of the afternoon passes in a blur of client meetings and paperwork. Isabella moves through it mechanically, her mind stuck in an endless loop of last night's argument. When 5 o'clock arrives, she lingers at her desk, dreading the empty house waiting for her. The drive home feels endless. Each traffic light offers another chance to rehearse what she'll say to Mateo, how she'll explain that helping Mr. Garcia wasn't about betraying their future, but about being true to who she is. The words sound hollow even in her head. She pulls into their driveway just as the sun begins to set. Mateo's car is already there, which surprises her. He usually works late when they're fighting. Light spills from the kitchen window, and the smell of cooking food drifts through the evening air. For a moment, hope flutters in her chest. Maybe he's ready to talk. But as soon as she steps inside, she knows something's wrong. Mateo stands at the stove, his back rigid with tension. The kitchen counter is covered with papers, bank statements, budget spreadsheets, their carefully planned financial future laid bare. "I've been looking at the numbers," he says without turning around. His voice is dangerously quiet. "Do you have any idea how long it took us to save that money?" Isabella sets her bag down slowly, her heart pounding. "Mateo, please." He whirls to face her, eyes blazing. 3 years, Isabella. 3 years of overtime and careful spending. 3 years of saying no to vacations, to eating out, to every little luxury, and you threw it away in one day. "I didn't throw it away," she protests. "I saved a man's life." "With our future." Mateo slams his hand on the counter, making the papers jump. "What about the house we wanted? The family we talked about having? What about our dreams?" "Dreams can wait. Mr. Garcia couldn't. Always someone else's emergency." Mateo's laugh is bitter, ugly. "Always someone else's needs. When do our needs matter, Isabella? When do I matter?" "You matter every day," she says, taking a step toward him. "But I couldn't live with myself if I let him die when we had the means to help." "The means?" Mateo's face contorts. "Those means were our security, our chance at something better." His fists clench at his sides. "But you never think about that, do you? Never think about what your bleeding heart costs us." "That's not fair." "Fair?" The word explodes from him like a gunshot. Before Isabella can react, Mateo's fist connects with her stomach. The impact drives the air from her lungs, sending her stumbling backward against the wall. Time seems to stop. Isabella stares at Mateo, one hand pressed against her abdomen, unable to process what just happened. His face shifts from rage to horror as he realizes what he's done. "Isabella, He reaches for her, but she flinches away. Without a word, she turns and walks out of the kitchen. Her feet carry her upstairs to their bedroom, where she sits on the edge of the bed, still pressing her hand against her stomach. The pain is sharp, but it's nothing compared to the void opening inside her chest. She can hear Mateo moving around downstairs, drawers opening and closing, keys jingling, the front door slamming. His car starts up and pulls away, leaving her alone in the growing darkness. Tomorrow, she'll have to face the consequences of this moment. Tomorrow, she'll have to decide what this means for their marriage, for their future. But tonight, she sits in the silence of their bedroom, watching shadows lengthen across the floor, wondering how doing the right thing could feel so much like everything falling apart. The next morning dawns gray and cold. Isabella moves through her morning routine like a ghost, barely tasting her coffee, hardly feeling the warm water of her shower. Her stomach aches where Mateo struck her, a constant reminder of how quickly things can change. At work, she struggles to focus on her clients' needs. The Rodriguez family sits across from her desk, discussing their teenage son's addiction issues, but their words seem to come from far away. Isabella catches herself staring at the family photo on her desk, the one she turned face down yesterday, instead of listening to Mrs. Rodriguez's concerns about rehabilitation programs. "Miss Martinez?" Lily Rodriguez leans forward, her face creased with worry. "Are you all right? You seem distracted." Isabella blinks, forcing herself back to the present. "I'm sorry, Lily. You were saying about the outpatient program?" But the moment is broken. Lily exchanges a look with her husband, their concern shifting from their son to their usually attentive social worker. Isabella feels shame heat her cheeks. These people need her help, and she's letting her personal problems affect her work. Maybe we should reschedule, Mr. Rodriguez suggests gently, when you're feeling more yourself. Isabella wants to protest, to insist she can handle their case, but the words stick in her throat. They're right. She's not herself today. She's not sure who she is anymore. During her lunch break, Isabella sits in her car, staring at her phone. No messages from Mateo. She types out another text. We need to talk about what happened. Her finger hovers over the send button for a long moment before she deletes it. What is there to say about last night? What words could possibly bridge the chasm that's opened between them? The afternoon brings more clients, more crises, more moments where Isabella has to force herself to focus on other people's problems instead of her own. She catches herself touching her stomach. The bruise there, a constant reminder of how things have changed. Each time she does it, she forces her hand away, straightens her spine, tries to be the professional her clients need. But the mask slips again during her last appointment of the day. A young mother describes her struggle to feed her children on a minimum wage salary, and Isabella finds tears welling in her eyes. Not for the woman's situation, though that's heartbreaking enough, but for herself, for the life she thought she had, for the marriage that's crumbling around her. Ms. Martinez? The young mother reaches across the desk, touching Isabella's hand. Are you okay? Isabella pulls her hand back, wiping her eyes quickly. I'm fine. It's been a long day. When she finally leaves the office, the sun is setting. She sits in her car for a long time, watching other workers hurry to their cars, heading home to their families, their normal lives. The thought of going home to her own house with its silence and its memories of last night makes her chest tighten with anxiety. Her phone buzzes. For a moment, hope flares. Maybe it's Mateo, ready to talk, ready to apologize. But it's Mr. Garcia's number on the screen. Miss Martinez, his voice is warm with gratitude. I just wanted to let you know that the doctors are very optimistic about my treatment. They say I'm responding well to the medication. That's wonderful news, Mr. Garcia. Her voice sounds hollow even to her own ears. There's a pause on the line. Are you sure you're all right? You don't sound like yourself. I'm fine, she lies. Just tired. Please focus on your recovery. After hanging up, Isabella finally starts her car. The drive home feels like navigating through fog. Everything's slightly unreal and dangerous. When she pulls into her driveway, Mateo's car is already there. Her hands start shaking on the steering wheel. Inside, the house is quiet except for the sound of the shower running upstairs. Isabella moves through the kitchen, noting the unwashed dishes in the sink, the budget papers still scattered across the counter. Everything looks normal, as if last night never happened. But when she catches her reflection in the kitchen window, she sees a stranger. Someone uncertain, afraid, diminished. The shower stops. Footsteps move across the ceiling above her. Isabella stands frozen in the kitchen, listening to the familiar sounds of Mateo moving around upstairs. Once, these sounds meant comfort, security, home. Now they make her pulse race with anxiety. She should go upstairs. They should talk about what happened, but her feet won't move. Instead, she stands in the darkening kitchen, one hand pressed against her bruised stomach, wondering how they got here and where they go from here. The ceiling creaks as Mateo moves toward the stairs. Isabella holds her breath, waiting, but his footsteps turn away toward the guest room. A door closes quietly. In the silence that follows, Isabella finally lets herself cry. The tears come silently at first, then in gasping sobs that shake her whole body. She slides down to sit on the kitchen floor, pressing her hands against her mouth to muffle the sound. This is what doing the right thing has cost her. Her marriage, her sense of safety, her certainty about who she is and what she believes in. Mr. Garcia will live, will get his treatment, will have a chance at a future. But Isabella's own future has shattered into sharp-edged pieces that cut her every time she tries to pick them up. Tomorrow, she'll have to face another day of pretending to be okay. Tomorrow, she'll have to decide what to do about Mateo, about their marriage, about the life they've built together. But tonight, she sits on the cold kitchen floor, letting herself feel the full weight of her choices, wondering if the price of being good is always this high. The kitchen grows darker around her as night falls. Upstairs, Mateo moves around the guest room, each footstep a reminder of the distance between them. Isabella stays on the floor until her legs go numb and her tears run dry. Then she picks herself up, straightens her clothes, and heads upstairs to their empty bedroom. This is who she is now, someone who saves others at the cost of herself, someone who does the right thing even when it breaks her heart. Someone who has to learn to live with the consequences of her choices, no matter how painful they might be. As she lies in bed, staring at the ceiling, Isabella thinks about Mr. Garcia, about his gratitude, about the life he'll now have a chance to live. She thinks about Mateo, about his anger, about the moment everything changed between them. She thinks about herself, about who she was yesterday and who she'll have to become tomorrow. The night stretches long and empty before her, full of questions without answers and choices without good outcomes. But somewhere in the darkness, Isabella finds a small, hard kernel of certainty. Even knowing how it would end, she'd make the same choice again. That knowledge doesn't make the pain any less, doesn't heal the bruise on her stomach or the crack in her heart, but it gives her something to hold on to as she waits for morning. In the guest room down the hall, Mateo's light goes out. The house settles into silence, broken only by the sound of Isabella's quiet breathing and the distant ticking of the kitchen clock, counting down the minutes until dawn. Isabella's breaking point comes after another draining day at work. Her last client, an elderly woman facing eviction, reminds her so much of Mr. Garcia that she can barely maintain her professional composure. The moment the woman leaves, Isabella's carefully constructed walls crumble. She collapses onto her office couch, her body shaking with silent sobs. The weight of everything, her failing marriage, her professional struggles, the constant pressure to help others while her own life falls apart, crashes over her like a wave. Her hands tremble as she reaches for the photo on her desk, the one of her and Mateo on their wedding day. The phone rings, cutting through her breakdown. It's Mr. Garcia. "Miss Martinez?" His voice is warm, grateful. "I just finished my latest treatment. The doctors say I'm doing better than they expected." Isabella wipes her eyes, trying to steady her voice. "That's wonderful news, Mr. Garcia. I can never thank you enough for what you've done." His words, meant to comfort, only heighten her pain. "You're a true angel." After hanging up, Isabella stands before the office window, studying her reflection in the darkening glass. The woman staring back at her looks different somehow. Older, more worn, but also stronger. Her shoulders are tense, her eyes red from crying, but there's something else there too, a determination that wasn't there before. She touches her stomach where Mateo struck her, feeling the lingering tenderness. The bruise is fading, but the memory remains sharp and clear. Her wedding ring catches the last light of day, throwing tiny reflections across the wall. Isabella clenches her fists, acknowledging the truth she's been avoiding. Helping Mr. Garcia was the right thing to do, but the cost has been devastating. Her marriage may not survive this crisis. She and Mateo may never recover from the choices she's made. But standing here, in the growing darkness of her office, Isabella realizes she would make the same choice again. This knowledge settles into her bones like a weight and a shield at once. She is who she is, someone who will sacrifice her own happiness to help others, someone who will choose what's right over what's easy. The realization doesn't ease her pain or solve her problems, but it gives her something solid to stand on as her world shifts and changes around her. Isabella gathers her things, preparing to face another night in a home that no longer feels like home. Tomorrow will bring more challenges, more choices, more moments where she'll have to balance her heart against her obligations. But for now, she straightens her spine, wipes the last tears from her eyes, and steps into the evening, carrying both her conviction and her grief like familiar companions. The silence in their home has become a living thing, heavy and suffocating. Isabella stands in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup she knows Mateo won't eat with her. Steam rises in lazy spirals, carrying the scent of her grandmother's recipe: chicken, cilantro, lime, but the familiar aroma brings no comfort tonight. 3 weeks have passed since she gave their savings to Mr. Garcia. 3 weeks of cold shoulders and colder beds, of conversations reduced to necessary exchanges about grocery lists and utility bills. Mateo sleeps in the guest room now, his absence a wound that refuses to heal. The front door opens and closes. Mateo's footsteps in the hallway, deliberate and measured. She waits for him to appear in the kitchen doorway, but he passes by without pause. The sound of his shoes on the stairs, each step an accusation. "I made soup," she calls out, hating the way her voice wavers. "If you're hungry." No response. Just more footsteps overhead, the soft thud of his bedroom door closing. Isabella turns off the stove, appetite gone. The soup will keep until tomorrow, another meal she'll eat alone. She moves through their home like a ghost, straightening magazines no one reads, adjusting photos whose memories feel increasingly distant. In their, her, bedroom, she changes into pajamas that still smell faintly of fabric softener. The laundry was one of their Sunday rituals, sorting clothes together while sharing stories about their week. Now the hamper overflows, neither willing to acknowledge these small domestic failures. She slides between cold sheets, staring at the ceiling. The house creaks and settles around her, its familiar sounds somehow lonelier without Mateo's steady breathing beside her. From down the hall, she hears him moving around in the guest room, the squeak of bed springs, the soft click of his bedside lamp. Sleep proves elusive. Isabella reaches for her phone, scrolling through work emails she should have answered hours ago. Crisis after crisis demands her attention. Families facing eviction, children needing medical care, elderly couples choosing between medicine and food. The weight of their needs presses down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. A text from Maria Suarez lights up her screen. "Got the job. Starting Monday. Thank you for everything." The small victory should bring joy, but Isabella can only manage a wan smile. Even her successes feel hollow now, tainted by the cost of her compassion. Morning arrives too soon, painting the bedroom walls in shades of gray. Isabella drags herself through her routine, careful to avoid the bathroom when she hears Mateo's shower running. They've developed an intricate dance of avoidance, timing their movements to minimize contact. She's almost made it to the front door when his voice stops her. The mortgage payment cleared yesterday. Mateo stands at the top of the stairs, his dress shirt crisp and perfect, his face carefully blank. "Just thought you should know, since you're so interested in our finances these days." The words land like slaps. Isabella grips her car keys tighter, metal edges biting into her palm. "That's good. I can transfer my half." "Don't bother." He turns away, disappearing back into the guest room. The door closes with deliberate softness, somehow worse than a slam. Isabella makes it to her car before the tears come, hot and unwanted. She wipes them away with trembling fingers, forcing herself to focus on the day ahead. Her clients need her steady, professional. They can't see how she's crumbling inside. The fluorescent lights of her office buzz with familiar persistence as she settles behind her desk. Case files tower in precarious stacks, each folder containing stories of struggle and need. She reaches for the top one, but movement in her doorway makes her pause. Mr. Garcia stands there, leaning heavily on his cane. His face is gaunt, skin stretched tight over sharp cheekbones, but his eyes still hold that gentle warmth she remembers. The sight of him sends a complicated surge of emotions through her chest. Joy at seeing him upright, guilt over the cost of his presence, like fierce pride in her choice to help. "Mr. Garcia?" She hurries around her desk, guiding him to a chair. "You should have called. I would have come to you." He waves off her concern, settling into the seat with careful movements. "Some things need to be said in person, Miss Martinez." Up close, she can see how the treatment has ravaged him. His hands tremble slightly as they rest on his cane, and his collar hangs loose around his neck. But there's a strength in his posture that wasn't there before, a quiet determination that makes her heart ache. "The doctors say I'm responding well to the treatment." He meets her eyes directly. "Better than they expected, actually, and I want you to know," his voice catches and he clears his throat, "I want you to know that you gave me more than just medicine. You gave me hope when I had none left." Isabella's throat tightens. "Mr. Garcia, let me finish, please." He leans forward slightly, his expression earnest. "My Carmen, my wife, she was like you, always helping others, even when it cost her everything. The night before she passed, she made me promise to keep looking for the good in people, to believe that kindness still exists in this world." His eyes grow distant with memory. "You remind me so much of her." The words hit Isabella like physical blows. She thinks of Mateo, of the growing distance between them, of all the dreams they once shared. I just did what anyone would do. Mr. Garcia shakes his head, a sad smile playing at his lips. No, Miss Martinez. You did what few would dare. You chose to help a stranger at great personal cost. That kind of courage, it's rare. And I need you to know that it matters, that you matter. Tears threaten again, but Isabella forces them back. She wants to tell him about Mateo, about the fractures in her marriage, about the nights she lies awake wondering if she made the right choice. But the words stick in her throat. Mr. Garcia reaches across the desk, his weathered hand covering hers. Your kindness gave me strength when I needed it most. Sometimes the right path is the hardest one, but that doesn't make it any less right. They sit in comfortable silence for a moment, the buzz of fluorescent lights a gentle backdrop to their shared understanding. When Mr. Garcia finally stands to leave, his movements are slow but purposeful. At the door, he turns back. You're going to be okay, Miss Martinez. Sometimes we have to lose something precious to find something priceless. The words echo in her mind long after he's gone, mixing with memories of Mateo's cold silences and empty bedrooms. She stares at the stack of case files on her desk, each one representing another soul in need, another choice between personal comfort and professional duty. Her phone buzzes. Another text from Mateo, probably about bills or groceries or some other mundane detail that has become a battlefield between them. She leaves it unread, focusing instead on the warmth Mr. Garcia's visit has left behind. For the first time in weeks, she feels something close to peace. The next few days pass in a blur of client meetings and paperwork. Isabella throws herself into her work with renewed energy, Mr. Garcia's words becoming a mantra she repeats when doubt creeps in. She helps a young mother find affordable childcare, connects an elderly couple with meal delivery services, guides a teenager through college applications. Each small victory feels like validation, even as her personal life continues to unravel. Mateo's silences grow longer, his presence in their home more ghost-like. They orbit each other without touching, two planets knocked out of alignment. Then comes the call that changes everything. Isabella is at her desk, reviewing a particularly challenging case when her phone lights up with Mr. Garcia's number. Her heart skips. He never calls unless it's important. Mr. Garcia, is everything all right? His voice comes through clear and strong, vibrating with barely contained excitement. Better than all right, Miss Martinez. The doctors, they can't believe it. The treatment is working better than anyone expected. They're talking about remission. The word hits her like a thunderbolt. Remission? Really? Really. She can hear the smile in his voice. But that's not why I'm calling. There's something else we need to discuss. Something important. Isabella listens, her hand gripping the phone tighter with each word he speaks. By the time the call ends, she sits in stunned silence, his offer echoing in her ears like church bells. The sum he mentioned, it's more than generous. More than enough to replace their depleted savings, buy the house they'd dreamed of, start the family they'd planned. A gift, he called it. A way to repay their kindness. The irony tastes bitter in her mouth. All these weeks of tension with Mateo, all the cold silences and separate bedrooms, and now this. A solution that feels too easy, too convenient. Would money really fix what's broken between them? Or would accepting it somehow cheapen the choice she made? She drives home in a daze, Mr. Garcia's words mixing with memories of Mateo's anger, his accusations of choosing strangers over their future. The garage door opens to reveal his car already parked inside. He's home early for once. Isabella finds him in the kitchen, heating leftover takeout in the microwave. He glances up when she enters, his expression carefully neutral. We need to talk, she says, the words feeling foreign in her mouth. Mateo turns back to the microwave, watching the container spin. About? Mr. Garcia called today. She takes a deep breath, steadying herself. He wants to give us money. A lot of money, more than what we gave him. The microwave beeps, but Mateo doesn't move to open it. What? He's been saving for years, apparently. Says he always wanted to help someone the way we helped him. The words tumble out faster now. It's enough for the house, Mateo. Enough for everything we planned. He turns slowly, his face a mask she can't read. And you think that fixes everything? That money makes it all better? No, She stops, realizing she doesn't know how to finish that sentence. Does she think it fixes things? Should she? You gave away our future without consulting me. His voice remains eerily calm. You chose a stranger over our plans, our dreams. And now what? We're supposed to pretend it never happened because he can pay us back? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Isabella? Finally, emotion creeps into his tone. Frustration, anger, something that might be pain. Because from where I'm standing, nothing's changed. You still put everyone else before us, before me. The truth of his words stings, but something else rises in Isabella, a certainty she hasn't felt in weeks. I put doing the right thing first, and I'd do it again. Matteo laughs, but there's no humor in it. Of course you would. That's the problem, isn't it? You'd rather be right than happy. That's not fair, isn't it? He moves past her, takeout forgotten in the microwave. Let me know what you decide about the money, though I'm sure you'll make that choice without me too. Isabella stands alone in the kitchen, the hum of appliances a poor substitute for conversation. Outside, the sun sets on another day, casting long shadows across their once happy home. She touches her wedding ring, feeling its weight, the promises it represents, the future it was meant to secure. The decision about Mr. Garcia's money looms before her, heavy with implications. Would accepting it mean compromising her principles? Would refusing it prove something to Matteo, or just drive them further apart? She retreats to her home office, surrounded by the familiar comfort of work files and client notes. Mr. Garcia's case file sits open on her desk, his kind eyes gazing up from the photo paperclip to the front. In the growing darkness, Isabella confronts the truth she's been avoiding. No amount of money can bridge the gulf between her and Matteo. Their problems run deeper than empty bank accounts and lost dreams. They're about values, priorities, the fundamental question of who they are and what they're willing to sacrifice for their beliefs. Tomorrow, she'll visit Mr. Garcia. She'll thank him for his generous offer and explain her hesitation. But tonight, she sits in the quiet of her office, listening to Matteo move around upstairs, wondering if some bridges once burned can ever truly be rebuilt. The weight of her choices settles around her like a familiar blanket, heavy but no longer suffocating. She made her decision weeks ago, standing in this same office, looking at Mr. Garcia's medical bills. The consequences of that choice are still unfolding, but for the first time since everything fell apart, Isabella feels something close to peace. She is who she is, a helper, a fighter for others, someone who believes in doing what's right even when it hurts. If Matteo can't accept that fundamental truth about her, then perhaps their love was built on shakier ground than she thought. Outside her window, stars begin to appear in the darkening sky, each one a point of light in the vast darkness, each one a reminder that sometimes we have to lose our way to find our truth. Isabella watches them emerge one by one until the night is full of possibilities she never dared to imagine. The next morning, Isabella drives to Mr. Garcia's modest house on the outskirts of town. Autumn leaves scatter across his small front yard, and a wind chime tinkles softly on the porch. She finds him tending to a row of potted plants, his movements slower but more certain than during his last visit. Ms. Martinez. He straightens carefully, a gentle smile crossing his face. I hoped you would come. Inside, the house smells of coffee and fresh bread. Photos line the walls, Mr. Garcia with his late wife, their children, grandchildren, a lifetime of love captured in fading snapshots. He gestures for her to sit at the kitchen table while he pours 2 cups of coffee. You've been thinking about my offer, he says. It's not a question. Isabella wraps her hands around the warm mug. Yes, and I'm grateful. More grateful than I can say. But you're not sure if you should accept. Mr. Garcia settles into the chair across from her, his eyes kind and knowing. It's not that I don't appreciate it. The words come slowly as Isabella searches for the right way to explain. What you're offering is incredibly generous, but accepting it feels like... She pauses, struggling to articulate the conflict within her. Like it would somehow diminish what you did? Garcia suggests softly. Isabella nods, relief flooding through her at being understood. I didn't help you for reward or recognition. I did it because it was right. And that, Mr. Garcia says, reaching across the table to pat her hand, is exactly why you deserve this gift. But I understand if you need time to decide. My offer has no expiration date. Tears prick at Isabella's eyes. Thank you for understanding, for everything. As she leaves his house, Isabella feels a subtle shift in her perspective. The weight of her choices remains, but it feels different now, less like a burden and more like a foundation she can build upon. Whatever happens with Mateo, whatever she decides about Mr. Garcia's offer, she knows that her path forward must be on her own terms. She drives home beneath a sky that promises rain, thinking about courage and choices and the price we pay for staying true to ourselves. The future stretches before her, uncertain but no longer threatening. She is who she is, a helper, a fighter, a woman who chooses what's right over what's easy. That truth, at least, remains unshaken. The realtor's keys jingle in Isabella's hand as she stands before the Spanish-style ranch house. Morning light catches in the dewdrops clinging to the red tile roof, making them sparkle like tiny jewels. The front yard stretches wide and peaceful, dotted with drought-resistant plants and river rocks, so different from their cramped suburban lot. She takes a deep breath of the crisp morning air. This could be it, their fresh start. The house represents everything she hopes to rebuild with Mateo: space, serenity, a chance to begin again. Mr. Garcia's generous gift burns in her pocket, the cashier's Chevy with possibility. The financial advisor's words from yesterday echo in her mind as she moves up the flagstone path. This is a sound investment, Mrs. Martinez. The mortgage payments will be well within your means. He had smiled, shuffling papers across his desk. You're making a wise choice. But wisdom feels far away as Isabella unlocks the front door. The empty house greets her with cathedral ceilings and terracotta floors, everything bigger and brighter than their current home. Her footsteps echo as she moves through the space, trying to imagine their life here. Mateo cooking in the gourmet kitchen, the two of them sharing coffee on the covered patio, building the future they'd always dreamed about. Her phone buzzes. Speaking of Mateo. I'm at the house again, she says when she answers, her voice bouncing off bare walls. During work hours, his tone carries that edge she's grown too familiar with lately. I took an early lunch. Isabella moves to the kitchen, running her hand along the granite countertop. I really think you should see it. The neighborhood is perfect, quiet, but close enough to both our jobs. And there's this amazing kitchen. Whatever you think is best. The words fall flat, devoid of emotion. Isabella's hand drops from the counter. Don't you want to at least look at it before I make an offer? You seem to have it all figured out. Papers shuffle in the background. I need to get back to work. The call ends before she can respond. Isabella stares at her phone, her reflection distorted in the dark screen. She barely recognizes herself these days. The shadows under her eyes, the tight set of her jaw. Even with Mr. Garcia's gift solving their financial problems, something fundamental remains broken between them. Still, she makes the offer, signs the papers, watches their savings transform into earnest money and down payments. Each step feels both right and wrong, like walking a tightrope between hope and delusion. The realtor's congratulatory handshake leaves her cold. Moving day arrives under heavy clouds. The movers work efficiently, carrying their life from one house to another, while Isabella directs traffic and Mateo stays silent, methodically packing and unpacking boxes as if completing a task at work. The distance between them spans more than physical space. Where do you want the family photos? One of the movers holds up a carefully wrapped frame, their wedding picture. Isabella glances at Mateo, but he's absorbed in organizing the kitchen, his back turned. The hall wall, she decides. They'll look nice there. She spends the afternoon unpacking, trying to make the house feel like home. Family photos line the hallway. Throw pillows soften the new couch. Her grandmother's hand-crocheted blanket drapes across the master bed. But each personal touch feels like decoration rather than connection, like she's staging a show home rather than building a life. Mateo moves through the space like a ghost, speaking only when necessary. The cable company's coming tomorrow. Your boxes are in the office. I'm going to bed. Each interaction carries the weight of unspoken words, of conversations they're not having. Night falls, and Isabella stands in their new kitchen, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and unfamiliar shadows. Everything looks perfect on the surface: the dream house, the fresh start, the financial security they'd always wanted. But in the quiet moments between unpacking and organizing, she feels the hollow space where their connection used to be. She makes tea, hoping the familiar ritual will help her sleep. The new kitchen feels too big, too empty. Their old kettle looks out of place on the professional-grade stove. Footsteps behind her make her turn. Mateo stands in the doorway, looking lost in his own home. "Can't sleep?" she asks, reaching for another mug. He shakes his head but doesn't move closer. "It's too quiet here." Isabella adds a tea bag to the second mug. "We'll get used to it." She tries to smile. "Maybe we could get a sound machine, like at the therapist's office." The mention of therapy makes Mateo's jaw tighten. He turns away. "I'm going to try to sleep." The tea grows cold in the second mug as Isabella stands alone in their perfect new kitchen, wondering if any house can be big enough to hold the space growing between them. Days blur into weeks. Isabella throws herself into making the house a home, as if the right combination of comfort and beauty could bridge the gap between them. She plants herbs in the kitchen window, hangs art on the walls, arranges furniture to create cozy conversation areas that remain unused. Mateo spends more time at work, coming home later and later. When he is home, he orbits around her like a distant satellite, maintaining careful distance. They share space but not lives, existing in parallel but never quite connecting. The suggestion of couples therapy comes during dinner, another quiet meal of avoiding each other's eyes across their new dining table. "I think we should talk to someone," Isabella says, pushing pasta around her plate. "Professional help might fix what the money couldn't." Mateo's fork clatters against his plate. "That's not fair." Isabella sets down her own fork. "I'm trying here, Mateo, but I can't do this alone." He stares at his plate for a long moment before nodding. "Fine, set it up." The therapist's office smells of lavender and new carpet. Isabella sits on one end of the beige couch, Mateo on the other, the space between them a physical manifestation of their emotional distance. Dr. Chen watches them with practiced neutrality, her notepad balanced on crossed legs. "Why don't we start with why you're here?" Dr. Chen's voice is gentle but firm. Isabella glances at Mateo, but he stares at the wall behind Dr. Chen's head. The silence stretches until Isabella fills it. "We're having trouble connecting," she begins. "Even after moving to a new house, trying to start fresh." Her voice catches. "It feels like we're just going through the motions." Dr. Chen nods. "Mateo, would you like to add anything?" "What's there to add?" His voice is flat. "We have a nice house. Our bills are paid. Isn't that what we wanted?" "Is it?" Dr. Zach. Chen leans forward slightly. "What did you want, Mateo?" He shifts on the couch, the leather creaking beneath him. "I wanted." He stops, jaw working. "I wanted my wife to choose us. Just once." The words hit Isabella like a physical blow. "That's not. I didn't." "Let's explore that," Dr. Chen interrupts gently. "Mateo, can you tell Isabella directly what you mean?" But Mateo is already standing, his movements sharp with tension. "I can't do this. This isn't..." He runs a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry. I need some air." The door closes behind him with a soft click that feels louder than a slam. Isabella sits frozen on the couch, her hands twisted together in her lap. "Would you like to continue?" Dr. Chen asks after a moment. Isabella nods, tears burning behind her eyes. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispers. "I thought if we had stability, if we could start over somewhere new." She looks around the peaceful office, at the sound machine whirring softly in the corner, at the empty space beside her on the couch. But maybe some things can't be fixed with money or houses or therapy. Dr. Chen sets down her notepad. "What do you think needs fixing, Isabella?" The question opens something inside her, a dam of words she's been holding back. "Everything. Nothing. I don't know anymore." She presses her hands against her eyes. "I made a choice I still believe was right. But it broke something between us. And now..." She gestures helplessly at the empty space beside her. "Now, I don't know if what's broken can be put back together." The session ends with Isabella alone on the couch, clutching a tissue and feeling more lost than when she arrived. Outside, the parking lot is empty. Mateo's car is gone. She drives home to their beautiful new house, parks in the spacious garage, and sits in the dark car for a long moment. The house looms before her, all perfect lines and expensive finishes. Everything she thought would fix them. Inside, she moves through rooms that still don't feel like home, despite her best efforts. Family photos watch from the walls as she pours a glass of wine with shaking hands. She ends up in their home office, surrounded by the carefully organized remnants of their old life. Her fingers find the folder of financial documents, proof of their newfound stability. Bank statements showing healthy balances, mortgage papers for their dream home, all made possible by Mr. Garcia's generosity. Mr. Garcia, who meant to help but whose gift may have only highlighted what was already broken. The front door opens and closes. Footsteps move through the house. Mateo, home from wherever he went after therapy. He pauses in the office doorway, his silhouette dark against the hallway light. "I'm sorry," he says quietly, "for walking out." Isabella nods, not trusting her voice. "But I meant what I said." He leans against the doorframe, still keeping his distance. "About choosing us. I did choose us," Isabella whispers. "I thought, with the house, the fresh start. That's not what I meant." Mateo's voice is tired. "A house isn't a marriage, Isabella. Money isn't love." The truth of his words settles over her like a heavy blanket. She thinks of all her efforts to fix things with material solutions, the house, the furniture, the perfectly arranged photos on the walls. None of it touches the real wound between them. "I don't know how to fix this," she admits. "Maybe that's the problem." Mateo straightens, his hand dropping from the doorframe. "You're still trying to fix everything." He leaves her sitting in the dark office, surrounded by papers that prove their financial security but say nothing about the state of their hearts. Outside, a car alarm chirps in the quiet neighborhood. Inside, Isabella feels the weight of everything money can't buy pressing down on her chest. She sleeps in the guest room that night, curled around a pillow in a bed that still smells of fresh paint and new beginnings. In the morning, she'll wake up and try again. Go to work. Come home. Pretend that their perfect house isn't just an expensive Band-Aid on a wound that runs too deep to heal. But for now, she lets herself feel the full weight of her realization that sometimes the right choice leads to consequences no amount of money can fix, and that peace, real peace, can't be bought with any currency in the world. Morning light filters through unfamiliar curtains as Isabella faces another day in their beautiful prison of a house. The kitchen gleams with high-end appliances she barely uses anymore, cooking having become a solitary activity rather than the shared joy it once was. She makes coffee in the fancy machine Mateo insisted on buying, another attempt to make this house feel like home. The morning paper sits untouched on the counter, delivered to their perfect address in this quiet neighborhood. Isabella stares at it without seeing, her mind replaying yesterday's therapy session. Mateo's words echo in her head. A house isn't a marriage. Her phone buzzes, a text from Dr. Chen confirming their next appointment. Isabella's thumb hovers over the screen before she types a response. "I'll be there. Not sure about my husband." The uncertainty of that statement hits her harder than she expects. When did she stop knowing what Mateo would do? When did they stop being a we and become two separate I's living in the same expensive space? She carries her coffee to the back patio, another selling point of this house that was supposed to fix everything. The morning air holds a hint of fall, crisp and clean. In another life, she and Mateo might have shared this moment, planning their day or just enjoying each other's company in comfortable silence. Instead, she sits alone, watching the sun climb over their perfectly landscaped yard, feeling like a stranger in her own life. The sound of the garage door opening makes her tense. Mateo's footsteps move through the house, his morning routine carefully timed to minimize their interaction. She waits for him to leave without saying goodbye, as he has so many mornings lately. But today he pauses at the patio door. "About yesterday," he says, his voice careful and distant. "The therapy session." Isabella turns, hope fluttering in her chest despite everything. "Yes? I don't think I can go back." He adjusts his tie, not meeting her eyes. I'm not ready to talk about everything. Not like that." The hope dies as quickly as it arose. "Then how?" Isabella sets down her coffee cup to hide the trembling in her hands. "How do we fix this if we can't even talk about it?" "Maybe we can't." The words hang in the morning air between them, heavy with finality. Maybe some things aren't meant to be fixed. He leaves before she can respond, the garage door humming closed behind him. Isabella sits frozen on the patio, surrounded by all the trappings of the life they thought they wanted, feeling more alone than ever. The rest of the day passes in a blur of client meetings and paperwork, her professional mask firmly in place despite the chaos in her personal life. She helps others navigate their crises while her own marriage crumbles in a house that was meant to save it. Evening finds her in their home office again, surrounded by the evidence of their financial security. Bank statements, investment portfolios, property deed, all the papers that prove they're stable, successful, everything they thought they needed. She picks up a framed photo from her desk, her and Matteo on their wedding day, both smiling with the certainty of youth. They look so sure of their future, so confident in their love. When did that certainty slip away? When did success become a substitute for connection? The sound of keys in the front door makes her put down the photo. Matteo's footsteps move through the house, pausing in the kitchen. The refrigerator opens and closes. A cabinet door shuts. The normal sounds of someone coming home, except nothing about this feels normal anymore. Isabella stands, drawn by some need she can't name. In the kitchen, Matteo leans against the counter, a glass of water in his hand, looking as lost as she feels. "I miss you," she says before she can stop herself. He looks up, startled by her presence or her words. She's not sure which. "I'm right here." "Are you?" She moves closer, stopping at the kitchen island, another barrier between them, because it feels like we're just existing in the same space, going through the motions, living separate lives in this beautiful house that was supposed to make everything better. Matteo sets down his glass, the sound sharp in the quiet kitchen. "What did you expect, Isabella? That moving here would magically fix everything? That having money would make me forget?" "No, she stops, realizing that maybe that's exactly what she'd hoped. "I thought it would give us a chance to start over, to rebuild." "Rebuild what?" His voice rises slightly. "Trust? Trust? Understanding? The belief that I come first in your life?" He runs a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it makes her heart ache. "Those things can't be bought, Isabella. They can't be fixed with a nice house or a big bank account." "Then what do you want from me?" The words come out sharper than intended, frustration breaking through her careful control. "I'm trying, Matteo. I'm trying so hard to make this work." "That's just it." He pushes away from the counter. "You're always trying to make things work, to fix things, to solve everyone's problems." His eyes meet hers, and the pain she sees there takes her breath away. "But some things can't be fixed, Isabella. Sometimes they just break." The words hang between them in the perfect kitchen of their perfect house. Isabella grips the edge of the island, her knuckles white against the granite. "So that's it?" Her voice comes out barely above a whisper. "We just give up?" Matteo's laugh holds no humor. "Isn't that what we've been doing? Living separate lives, pretending this house and this neighborhood and all this money somehow makes up for what's broken between us?" "I never meant," Isabella's voice catches. She swallows hard. "The money, the house. I thought it would give us room to heal, space to find our way back to each other." "Space?" Matteo gestures at the expansive kitchen, the high ceilings, the expensive appliances. "We have plenty of space, Isabella. What we don't have is trust. Understanding, the belief that when things get hard, we'll choose each other first." His words strike deep, finding all the tender places in her heart. "I did choose you," she whispers. "I'm still choosing you." "Are you?" He picks up his water glass again, but doesn't drink. "Because from where I stand, you chose Mr. Garcia. You chose your principles. You chose being right over being married." "That's not fair." Heat rises in her cheeks. "I chose to help someone who needed it. Someone who was dying, Matteo. And yes, it cost us our savings, but he gave it back. He gave us more than we had before." "This house is just a house." The glass slams down on the counter, water sloshing over the rim. "It's not a marriage. It's not trust. It's not love." Matteo's voice breaks on the last word. "It's just stuff. Beautiful, expensive stuff that we live among like strangers." Isabella feels tears burning behind her eyes but refuses to let them fall. "Then what do you want from me? What can I do to fix this?" "That's exactly what I'm talking about." Matteo's shoulders slump. "You're still trying to fix everything. Find the right solution. Make it all better." He looks around their kitchen, at all the signs of prosperity that mean nothing. "But maybe some things stay broken, no matter how much money or effort or good intentions you throw at them." He walks away then, leaving Isabella alone in the kitchen they'd thought would be the heart of their new life. She listens to his footsteps move upstairs to the master bedroom that feels more like a hotel room these days. The sound of the shower starts, its expensive multiple shower heads creating white noise that doesn't quite mask the silence between them. Isabella slides to the floor, her back against the kitchen island. The tile is cold through her clothes, its Mediterranean pattern another carefully chosen detail that was supposed to make this house feel like home. She pulls her knees to her chest, making herself small in the vast space of their perfect kitchen. A car alarm chirps outside. Someone's dog barks in the distance. Normal sounds of their upscale neighborhood where everything looks perfect from the outside. Just like their house, just like their life. The realization hits her with crushing force. No amount of money can rebuild what's broken between them. No house, no matter how beautiful or peaceful, can bridge the gap that opened when she chose to help Mr. Garcia. She made a choice she still believes was right, but the cost might be higher than even Mr. Garcia's generous gift can repay. Upstairs, the shower stops. Footsteps move across the ceiling. Mateo, going through his nighttime routine in their ensuite bathroom with its dual vanities and heated floors. All the luxuries they'd thought they wanted. All the things that don't matter now. Isabella pulls herself up from the floor, legs stiff from sitting on the cold tile. She moves through their house like a ghost, turning off lights, checking locks, going through the motions of ending another day in this beautiful cage they've built for themselves. The guest room beckons, her refuge these past few weeks. Its neutral decor and untouched surfaces feel more honest than the master bedroom with its king-size bed and his and hers closets. At least here she doesn't have to pretend. She changes into pajamas, the soft cotton a poor substitute for the comfort she really needs. Through the wall, she can hear Mateo moving around in their bedroom. Once, the sound would have drawn her to him. Now it just reminds her of everything they've lost. Sleep eludes her, as it has so many nights lately. She stares at the ceiling, thinking about choices and consequences, about right decisions that lead to wrong outcomes, about houses that look perfect from the outside but can't contain the broken pieces of a marriage. Morning comes too soon, painting the guest room walls with soft light. Isabella lies still, listening to the quiet sounds of Mateo preparing for work. The garage door opens and closes. His car starts. Another day begins in their beautiful, broken life. She reaches for her phone, finds Dr. Chen's number. Her thumb hovers over it for a long moment before she types, "I need to schedule a session, just for me this time." The response comes quickly, "Tomorrow at 2?" "Yes," Isabella types. "I'll be there." She sets the phone down, feeling something shift inside her. Not hope, she's beyond that now. But maybe acceptance. Understanding that some breaks can't be fixed with money or houses or even time. That sometimes doing the right thing means living with consequences that no amount of material comfort can soften. The morning light grows stronger, illuminating all the perfect details of their perfect house. Isabella watches dust motes dance in the sunbeams, thinking about choices and consequences, about marriages and morals, about houses that can't hold what's already broken. Later, she'll get up, go to work, come home to this beautiful house that was supposed to fix everything. But for now, she lets herself feel the full weight of her realization, that peace can't be bought, that trust once broken might never mend, and that sometimes the right choice leaves wounds no amount of money can heal. In Dr. Chen's office the next day, Isabella sits alone on the beige couch. The sound machine whirs softly in the corner, but it can't mask the emptiness of the space beside her. "Tell me what brought you here today," Dr. Chen says, her voice gentle but firm. Isabella looks at her hands, twisting in her lap. "I think." She takes a deep breath. "I think I finally understand that I can't fix this." Dr. Chen nods, waiting for more. "All this time, I've been trying to solve everything with external things. The house, the money, even therapy." Isabella's laugh holds no humor. "But you can't buy back trust. You can't mortgage forgiveness. You can't renovate a broken heart." "That's a powerful realization," Dr. Chen says quietly. "What do you plan to do with it?" Isabella looks out the window, watching clouds drift across the afternoon sky. "I don't know," she admits. "For so long I've been focused on fixing things, making everything better. But maybe." She turns back to Dr. Chen, feeling tears burn behind her eyes. Maybe sometimes you have to accept that some things stay broken, no matter how much money or effort you throw at them. Dr. Chen sets down her notepad. And how does that make you feel? Scared, Isabella whispers. Sad, angry sometimes. She wipes at her eyes, but also relieved in a way, like I can stop trying so hard to fix something that might not be fixable. That's a heavy burden to set down, Dr. Chen observes. Isabella nods, feeling the truth of those words settle in her chest. She thinks of their beautiful house, of all the perfect details that can't hide the cracks beneath the surface, of Mateo moving through their expensive rooms like a stranger, of herself trying so hard to build a life out of luxury and good intentions. I thought. She stops, collects herself. When Mr. Garcia gave us the money, I thought it was an answer to everything, a way to make up for what I'd done. But money can't buy back trust. It can't rebuild connections. It can't. Her voice breaks. It can't make someone love you the way they used to. Dr. Chen lets the silence stretch, giving Isabella space to feel the weight of her words. Outside, a siren wails in the distance. Inside, the sound machine hums steadily, trying to create peace in a room heavy with realization. What now? Isabella asks finally, her voice small in the quiet office. That depends, Dr. Chen says gently. What do you want? Isabella thinks of their house, of Mateo, of all the perfect things that can't fix what's broken between them. I want. She stops, surprised by the truth rising in her throat. I want to stop pretending. Stop trying to fix everything. Stop. She gestures helplessly. Stop living in this beautiful lie we've built. Dr. Chen nods, her expression compassionate but neutral. That's a brave thing to admit. Is it? Isabella wipes fresh tears from her cheeks. It feels like giving up. There's a difference between giving up and accepting reality, Dr. Chen says quietly. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is acknowledge when something is broken beyond repair. The words settle over Isabella like a heavy blanket, both comforting and suffocating. She thinks of their house, waiting empty and perfect, full of expensive things that mean nothing. Of Mateo, distant and hurting, trying to live among the wreckage of their trust. Of herself, finally accepting that some breaks can't be fixed with money or houses or even the best intentions. I don't know how to do this, she admits, how to stop fixing, stop trying. Stop pretending everything's okay just because we have a nice house and enough money. You start by being honest, Dr. Chen says, with yourself and with Mateo, about what's really broken and what can't be fixed with material things. Isabella nods, feeling something shift inside her. Not hope, exactly, but maybe the beginnings of acceptance. Understanding that sometimes the right choice leads to consequences no amount of money can soften, and that peace, real peace, has to come from within. The session ends, and Isabella steps out into the afternoon sun. Her phone shows a text from Mateo, working late tonight. She stares at the message, seeing it for what it really is, not just a schedule update, but another sign of the distance between them. Another crack in the perfect facade they've tried to maintain. The drive home feels longer than usual, each mile giving her time to think about choices and consequences, about houses that can't hold broken things, about marriages that can't be fixed with money or material comfort. She parks in their spacious garage but doesn't get out of the car immediately. Instead, she sits in the growing darkness, looking at their beautiful house with new eyes, seeing it for what it really is, not a solution or a fresh start, but just a place, a very expensive place that can't contain or fix what's broken between them. The realization doesn't bring peace, exactly, but it brings something else, clarity. Understanding that sometimes doing the right thing means accepting consequences that no amount of money can fix, and that true peace can't be bought at any price. Tomorrow, she'll have to face this truth with Mateo, have the conversation they've been avoiding behind closed doors and perfect walls. But for now, she sits in the quiet car, letting herself feel the full weight of her acceptance, that some breaks stay broken, no matter how beautiful the space around them. Isabella steps out of the car, her footsteps echoing in the empty garage. The house looms before her, its perfect facade no longer a promise but a reminder. She moves through rooms that still feel like a stage set, beautiful but hollow. The evening light spills through west-facing windows, painting everything in shades of gold. She pauses in the kitchen, running her hand along the smooth granite countertop. How many dinners has she eaten alone here, waiting for Matteo to come home? How many mornings has she watched him leave without saying goodbye? Her feet carry her to the back patio where the garden she planted spreads before her in careful rows. Tomatoes ripen on the vine, herbs reach toward the fading sun. Life goes on even when everything else feels frozen. A plane traces its path across the darkening sky, its lights blinking steadily. Isabella watches it disappear behind the horizon, thinking about journeys and destinations, about paths that can't be changed once taken. Her phone buzzes. Another text from Matteo. Don't wait up. Two simple words that say everything about where they are now. Isabella sets the phone face down on the patio table, no longer needing to see the screen to know its truth. The evening air carries the scent of jasmine from the vine she planted along the fence, another attempt to make this place feel like home. Its sweetness catches in her throat, reminding her of earlier days when she and Matteo would sit outside together, planning their future. She closes her eyes, letting the cool breeze wash over her. In the distance, a wind chime rings softly, one of many small touches she'd added to their perfect house. The sound carries a different melody now, less like hope and more like acceptance. Inside, the house waits with its expensive emptiness. But out here, under the deepening sky, Isabella feels something shift inside her. Not healing exactly. Some wounds never fully heal, but understanding. Peace with her choices, even knowing their cost. She thinks of Mr. Garcia, alive and well because of her decision, of the lives she touches daily at work, the small differences she makes. Of Matteo, who taught her that love sometimes means letting go, even when everything in you wants to hold on. The first stars appear above her, pinpricks of light in the gathering dark. Isabella watches them emerge, remembering nights when she and Matteo would sit together, naming constellations. Different stars now, seen from a different place, but still constant, still true. A neighbor's dog barks in the distance. A car door slams. Normal sounds of a normal evening in their perfect neighborhood. But Isabella no longer feels the need to pretend this perfection can fix what's broken. She stands, feeling the solid ground beneath her feet. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. More therapy sessions, more silent meals, more moments of choosing between what's right and what's easy. But for now, in this quiet moment between day and night, she finds a different kind of peace. Not the peace she thought she'd find in this house, with its careful details and expensive comforts. Not the peace of problems solved or wounds healed, but the peace that comes from accepting what is, from understanding that some choices echo forever, from knowing that doing the right thing sometimes means living with the consequences. Isabella takes one last look at the darkening garden, at the life growing steady and strong despite everything. Then she turns toward the house, not her home anymore, but a place to rest while she figures out what comes next. The patio door closes behind her with a soft click. In the kitchen, she makes tea in a mug from their old house, its familiar chip a comfort against her palm. The perfect appliances gleam in the dim light, no longer promises, but just things, unable to hold the weight of her hopes. Tomorrow, she'll face whatever comes with clear eyes and an open heart. She'll continue helping others, knowing now that right choices don't always lead to happy endings. She'll live with the consequences of her decisions, carrying both their weight and their worth. But tonight, she sits in the growing darkness of their beautiful, broken home, finally at peace with the understanding that some things can't be fixed, and that's okay. Some breaks reshape us into something different, something stronger, something true. The tea grows cold in her hands as night settles over the house. Somewhere in the city, Matteo works late at his office, or maybe just avoids coming home. The distance between them stretches like stars across a dark sky, constant, beautiful, and impossible to reach. Isabella sets down her mug, ready to face another night in this house that was supposed to fix everything. But now she knows, nothing external can repair what's broken inside. The peace she sought was never in the perfect rooms or expensive furnishings. It was always here, in the quiet acceptance of what is, in the understanding that some choices leave permanent marks, in the knowledge that doing right doesn't always mean ending happy. She moves through the quiet house, turning off lights, each switch like a small surrender. Not giving up, but letting go. Finding peace, not in the fixing, but in the acceptance. Not in the perfect, but in the real. In the guest room, her room now, she leaves the curtains open, letting starlight paint patterns on the wall. Tomorrow will come with its own challenges, its own choices, its own consequences. But tonight she rests in the understanding that some breaks can't be fixed, some distances can't be bridged, and some peace can only be found in accepting what is, rather than fighting for what was. The morning light filters through Isabella's bedroom window, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. She stands at her dresser, fingers tracing the edge of an old photograph, her and Matteo on their wedding day, both smiling with the certainty of youth. The frame feels heavier now, weighted with memories of simpler times. She sets the photo face down and moves to the window. Their new neighborhood stretches before her, a patchwork of manicured lawns and cookie-cutter houses that should feel like progress. Instead, each pristine yard reminds her of what they've lost in the pursuit of what they thought they wanted. Isabella slips on her running shoes and heads outside. The early morning air bites at her cheeks as she falls into an easy rhythm, her feet carrying her past silent houses and empty streets. Each step feels like preparation, like she's building the strength she'll need for what's coming. 3 miles in, she stops at the local park. The wooden bench where she sometimes meets clients feels familiar under her fingers, worn smooth by countless stories of struggle and hope. She closes her eyes, letting memories wash over her. Maria and her children finding stable housing, the Mitchells keeping their home, Mr. Garcia starting his treatment. Mr. Garcia. His name still catches in her throat. The choice that changed everything, yet one she'd make again in a heartbeat. The morning sun warms her face as she remembers his grateful eyes, the trembling hands clutching medical bills that would have been his death sentence. Standing, Isabella stretches her tired muscles and begins the journey home. Each step feels more purposeful now, as if the physical act of running has somehow strengthened her resolve. She knows what's coming, the conversation that could end her marriage, but for the first time, the thought doesn't fill her with panic. Back home, she showers and dresses with careful precision, choosing clothes that feel like armor. A crisp white blouse, dark slacks, minimal jewelry. Professional, controlled, ready. Her journal lies on the kitchen table, its leather cover soft with use. Isabella settles into her usual chair, pen hovering over blank pages. Words begin to flow. I never meant to hurt you, Matteo, but I'm starting to understand that sometimes doing the right thing means causing pain. To others and to ourselves. The money we saved wasn't just about security or a future home. It represented trust, shared dreams, the life we thought we'd build together. But when I saw Mr. Garcia's medical bills, when I looked into his eyes and saw the fear there, I couldn't walk away, not even for us. Maybe that makes me selfish. Maybe it makes me cruel. Or maybe it just makes me who I am, someone who will always choose to help, even when it costs everything. The pen moves faster now, ink bleeding into paper. I've spent months trying to fix what broke between us, thinking that if I could just explain it right, you'd understand. But I'm starting to realize that understanding isn't the problem. You understand perfectly. That's why it hurts so much. You see me clearly. Someone who will always put others' needs first, even at the cost of our dreams. And you're right. I would do it again. Not because I don't love you, but because this is who I am. A person who sees suffering and has to act. A person who measures worth not in dollars saved, but in lives touched. Tears splash onto the page, smearing the ink. Isabella wipes them away with the back of her hand, continuing, I hope someday you'll forgive me. Not for what I did, I can't apologize for that, but for not being the partner you needed. For not being able to put our security above someone else's survival. I'm learning to forgive myself for the same thing. She closes the journal, running her fingers over its worn cover. The house feels too quiet, too empty, like it's holding its breath before a storm. Isabella moves to the living room, settling into the armchair that faces the front door. From here, she can see the driveway where Matteo's car will soon appear. Her phone buzzes. A text from him. Be home in 20. We need to talk. The words seem to pulse on the screen, each letter heavy with finality. Isabella sets the phone aside and straightens her shoulders. The afternoon light slants through the windows, painting golden rectangles on the floor. She watches dust motes dance in the beams, remembering all the times she sat in the same spot, waiting for different conversations, different outcomes. A car door slams outside. Footsteps on the porch. The key turning in the lock sounds like thunder in the quiet house. Mateo enters, his dress shirt wrinkled from a long day at work, his eyes tired but determined. He stops in the doorway, taking in the sight of her waiting. Something flickers across his face. Pain, maybe, or resignation. You don't understand what you've done, do you? His voice shakes with barely controlled emotion. All these months, and I'm the one who's left picking up the pieces. Isabella stays seated, her hands folded in her lap. I understand exactly what I've done, Mateo. He moves into the room, pacing like a caged animal. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you threw away our future, everything we worked for, without a second thought, for a stranger. Mr. Garcia wasn't just a stranger, Isabella says quietly. He was a human being who needed help we could provide. We? Mateo's laugh is sharp, bitter. There was no we in that decision, Isabella. You decided, you acted, you betrayed everything we built together. The words hit their mark, but Isabella doesn't flinch. You're right. I made the decision alone. I should have talked to you first, should have tried harder to help you understand. That was wrong of me. Wrong? Mateo stops pacing, turning to face her. His hands clench and unclench at his sides. Wrong doesn't begin to cover it. You took our savings, money we spent years collecting, sacrificing for, and gave it away, without asking, without caring what it would do to us. I cared. Isabella stands now, her voice steady. I cared so much it kept me awake at night. But Mateo, he was dying, actually dying, and we had the means to help. Those means were our future. Mateo's voice rises. Our chance at a real home, at starting a family someday. But you couldn't see past the next person needing help, the next crisis, the next stranger's problems. Tears prick at Isabella's eyes, but she blinks them back. Is that really what you think? That I didn't see our future? I saw it, Mateo. I saw everything we could have had, but I also saw a man who would die without help, and I couldn't live with that, not even for us. Mateo sinks onto the couch, the anger seeming to drain from him, leaving something raw behind. You couldn't live with letting him die, but you could live with destroying our marriage? The question hangs in the air between them, heavy with truth. Isabella moves closer, but doesn't touch him. I never wanted to destroy us, but I had to be true to who I am, even if that meant losing you. And who are you, Isabella? Mateo looks up at her, his eyes red-rimmed. Because the woman I married, I thought she cared about our dreams too, about the life we planned together. I did care. I do. Isabella's voice cracks. But I'm also someone who will always try to help others, even when it costs me everything. That's not going to change, Mateo. It's not something I can turn off or set aside. Even for us, even for our marriage, even for us. The words taste like goodbye. Mateo stands abruptly, running a hand through his hair. I can't do this anymore. I can't watch you sacrifice everything. Our savings, our future, our relationship, for everyone else. He moves toward the door. I need space, time to think. Isabella doesn't try to stop him. I understand. He pauses at the threshold, looking back at her one last time. The afternoon light catches his face, highlighting the pain etched there. Do you remember what you said at our wedding? About building a life together? Yes. I guess this just isn't the life either of us imagined. The door closes behind him with a soft click that sounds like an ending. Isabella stands in the empty room, listening to his car start, the engine fading into distance. Only when she can no longer hear it does she allow herself to sink back into the chair, tears finally falling freely. Days blur together after that. Isabella throws herself into her work with renewed focus, as if helping others might somehow fill the void Mateo's absence has left. She starts seeing a therapist, Dr. Chen, whose office becomes a sanctuary of sorts, a place where she can untangle the complex web of emotions that brought her here. Tell me about the moment you decided to help Mr. Garcia, Dr. Chen says during one session, her voice gentle but probing. Isabella stares out the window, watching leaves dance in the autumn wind. I saw his medical bills spread across my desk, saw the fear in his eyes when he realized treatment wasn't an option, and I knew with absolute certainty that I had the power to help to literally save his life. And the cost to your marriage? I didn't let myself think about it in that moment. Isabella's hands twist in her lap. Maybe that makes me selfish, or maybe it makes me a coward. But I knew if I stopped to really consider what it would do to Matteo and me, I might not have been able to go through with it. Do you regret it? The question hangs in the air. Isabella turns from the window, meeting Dr. Chen's steady gaze. I regret hurting Matteo. I regret not finding a better way, not trying harder to help him understand. But helping Mr. Garcia? No. I can't regret saving someone's life, even if it cost me my marriage. She reaches out to old friends too, rebuilding connections that had frayed while she was focused on her work and marriage. They meet for coffee, for walks, for quiet evenings of shared stories and gentle support. You did the right thing, her friend Sarah tells her over tea one evening, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Isabella wraps her hands around her mug, drawing comfort from its warmth. Then why does doing the right thing feel so much like failure? Because sometimes being true to yourself means disappointing people you love, Sarah says softly. It doesn't make you wrong, it just makes you human. The words stay with Isabella, echoing in her mind as she continues her work. Each day brings new challenges, new families needing help, new opportunities to make a difference. She approaches each case with renewed dedication, no longer torn between her calling and her marriage. One particularly busy afternoon, Isabella stands in her office looking out at the city skyline. The view isn't as impressive as some, but it reminds her of how far she's come. A stack of case files sits on her desk. Families helped, lives changed, small victories in an endless sea of need. Her phone hasn't rung with Matteo's name in weeks now. The silence should feel heavier, she thinks, but instead, it feels like clarity, like finally being able to breathe without apologizing for taking up space. A knock at her door draws her attention. Maria Suarez stands there, her children beside her, all of them smiling. We just wanted to say thank you, Maria says, stepping forward to hug Isabella. We got the apartment. The kids start their new school next week. Isabella hugs her back, feeling the familiar warmth of knowing she's helped make a difference. You did all the hard work, she says. I just pointed you in the right direction. After they leave, Isabella returns to the window. The late afternoon sun paints the city in shades of gold and purple, a reminder that even endings can be beautiful. She thinks of Matteo, hoping he's finding his own path to peace, his own way of understanding that sometimes love isn't enough to bridge the gap between who we are and who others need us to be. A new case file lands on her desk. Another family in crisis, another chance to help. Isabella opens it without hesitation, ready to do what she does best, offer hope to those who need it most. Her wedding ring catches the light as she writes, a reminder of what she's lost, but also what she's gained, the freedom to be exactly who she is, without apology or compromise. The community center buzzes with energy as Isabella moves through the crowd. The annual family support celebration she helped organize is in full swing, with clients past and present sharing stories of resilience and change. Children's laughter mingles with adult conversation, creating a symphony of hope that fills the decorated hall. She pauses near the refreshment table, watching Maria's children play with others from the program. Their mother stands nearby, deep in conversation with another parent, her face animated and confident, so different from the woman who first walked into Isabella's office months ago. Quite a turnout, says Carmen from the food bank, appearing at Isabella's side. You should be proud. Isabella smiles, surveying the room. They did all the hard work, she says, gesturing to the families. I just helped them find their way. As the evening winds down, Isabella steps outside for a moment of quiet. The sunset paints the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, a fitting end to a day of celebration. She thinks of Matteo, wondering if he'd understand now, seeing all these lives changed, all these families helped. But that's not her burden to carry anymore. She's learned to find peace in her choices, to trust the voice inside that tells her when something is right, even when it comes at a personal cost. Her steps are steady as she walks to her car, each one carrying her forward into whatever comes next. The future stretches before her, uncertain but full of possibility. Isabella Martinez, social worker, helper, woman standing firmly in her truth, drives into the sunset. She doesn't know exactly where the road leads, but for the first time in a long time, she's completely at peace with the journey. Thank you so much for watching and listening to our story. Your time and support mean the world to us. If this video resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Your engagement helps us grow and continue sharing meaningful stories. See you in the next video.